Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Charlotte. This is Zorina, trainer in business with meaning, and I'm here again today. I have the pleasure to have Charlotte Common, a happiness designer, an author, a minister, and just an amazing person with a lot of experience that is the support of women of all ages. So welcome again, Charlotte.
Hello, Zorina, and thank you for inviting me again to talk about a very, very interesting topic today. So
yes. Today's
time
topic, announcing.
Time to be in creating harmony within in the office and at home. That is so important nowadays. So let's talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, how to create harmony. Usually when we talk about harmony, people think that, or it's been imposed by the outside that you can create harmony within, and it doesn't really matter what you're surrounded by. I mean, this is what the whole law of attraction movement talked about. Change yourself within and your circumstances will change. But for most people, they don't. I mean, this might take years and years until you practice this balance within and hope that your circumstances may change. But I actually believe that employers have just as much responsibility about the environment of their employees as have employees about their personal life balance, about their balance within. It's a common responsibility because they help each other achieve a common goal, or this should be the ideal. So when we talk about burnout, for example, and somebody has gone out of balance, and usually people, although it's on the rise, excuse me, tremendous rise on the UK alone, I recently read statistics, it was close to 20%, 18% year-on-year increase of burnout between 2017 and 2018. So this is a huge number. And right now, the UK government is implementing changes where they, where companies would need to spare budget for well-being, for culture, for leadership trainings. It's not recommendable anymore, it's a must. So you see that there is a clear movement also in terms of policies, governmental policies, but somehow companies still shy away from implementing those policies and realizing that their employees are not their slaves, that they're their true resources.
I'm so happy that you bring this up, because out of my own experiences, when I was working, for example, as a minister, I had a lot of work to do already, and there was a big area, I had to serve, and I was working, Zorina, you will not believe it. I sometimes started at 6 o'clock in the morning and finished at midnight. So what I did was, I've got 2 dogs and I love nature. Nature always replenishes me, always charges up my batteries. And I would walk my dogs for 45 minutes in the morning and 45 minutes in the afternoon. And my boss heard this, that I was walking the dogs. And she said, obviously, Charlotte, you haven't got enough work to do. I think I'll give you more. I said, I need this time. I need this time to recover. But she did not listen. Now, this happens in industry as well, that the companies are very money driven and it's all about sales. But what they don't realize is that actually the people who are selling are the biggest asset of their company. It's the human beings who have certain needs, and to be creative, they need to be in an environment where they're understood and where their creativity can unfold. And I think once businesses realize that actually I'm creating something which is pro creativity, and it's all about creativity, and I'm pro fulfilling potential, then actually the workers can produce far more, and they're much happier at the workplace, and they're not sick as often. Because what happens when people get so stressed out, they become sick. All sorts of illnesses creep in.
Right.
And then you have to pay them, because they're employed. It's so short-sighted to make a company just money and sales driven,
And
because
it's,
we yeah.
and it's not only absenteeism. It's not that people only don't show up at work, because sometimes they do need to show up and they have a limited number of days where they're allowed to take sick leave. But very often it's called, actually, it's a new term called presenteeism. When people are present, but they're not there. Their body is there, but they're not spiritually and creatively there. So why do you need dead bodies in your company?
Yeah, I love that. I love that thought, because it's actually, you know, what the companies employ or create. The companies create that. If you don't have a good manager, you create robots. Now, a robot is good, but a robot only thinks so far and does the tasks only so far. But when you have a human being who can fulfill their potential and they're excited about going to work in the morning, and they say, oh, we'll see what we can do together. This is togetherness as a community. And there again, I think companies sometimes fail to understand that the workers can be a community that works together.
Yeah, this is the this seems to be a major problem of corporate culture, that these values are all communicated. We're going to do things together. This is our common goal. This is our purpose, but it's only empty words. It's simple communication that bears no implemented policies behind it. There's no training. There's no real backing up of these communicated values. So they're not the practiced values.
Yeah, and that's a pity. And
yeah.
that's a pity. Because actually, you know, we're basically in a contract. You know, the employer and the employee are in a contract together to have a common goal. And the common goal is actually to produce something. Let's say we take car production. So the common goal is to produce really, really good cars, which are very efficient, you know? So when they work together and they don't just see the product, but actually see the human input, how important that is. Yeah, and how vibrant a company can be. You know, those companies will do well and the other ones just will die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we talked a little bit before we started recording about burnout and how this seriously affects everybody, basically, employees, employers, the whole society. Burnout is a serious topic, and still the people that were never affected by it don't take it serious. It's only
I was affected by it, because you can imagine when you work from 6 o'clock in the morning until midnight, and then you're even told you can't take your dog for a walk because, you know, you should work more, and you're on a conveyor belt somewhere. And especially when you're caring, you know, when the caring profession, like I was minister, so it's very, very difficult. So in the end, I suffered from burnout, and those who have never been through it don't understand it. Yeah? And how much suffering it brings, and it brings suffering to the whole family, to the whole, to friends as well, because they see how the person suffers. And you know what? I believe now that a big part of experiencing burnout is not only that you're overworked, it's the injustice of it all.
Exactly. It's the injustice. I have also experienced it, and I only realized it when I thought about the subject of burnout a few months ago. So you see, I'm not working in corporate already for 4 years. And only now I realized that I had actually had burnout. So as you said, it is, and I've talked to a lot of people, it's not really the physical work or the mental work. It is the being burned out. So you had fire, you were fired up about something. You wanted to accomplish something because a company had communicated a goal with you, that this is what they wanted to achieve, and they've communicated with you their value of you having certain freedom and taking initiative. But then suddenly, after you've fired yourself up, you were burned down because they put up the borders, and your authority, you realize, is not as communicated. So the communicated values are completely different from the practice values. So in the end, you realize that or you realize, you don't realize, but your fire is just put off. And this is what the burnout is. When somebody pushes you down, your vital energy, this is
Yes.
being burned out.
Yeah. And you know what? I also find that sometimes colleagues, for example, I mean, I was unlucky. I had colleagues who they were jealous. There was a lot of female jealousy there. And then if you're not supported, so you feel there is injustice. I'm working already. I'm giving my best, but I'm not supported. I'm not heard. And you can look after yourself as much as you can. But if you stand against colleagues in the hierarchy who push you, and are workaholics themselves, but because they don't take care of themselves. You know, I found that in the church, for example, it was a Christian rat race. It was ridiculous. I used to say, come on, we need time to pray. We need time to have peace. Well, we don't have time to pray. Hang on a minute. You know, if you lose sight of what you're trying to do, and there's just the pressure, any minister who was not working flat out was not seen to be a good minister. That's absolutely crazy. But that happens in industry as well.
Oh yeah, all the time.
And that is terrible. And there is the injustice. So I think the burnout happens because you're not understood, you're not listened to, you experience injustice, and all of that burdens you. You want to do the work, you want to produce, and you want to create the best for everybody. But if you come against a wall of injustice and bullying, you know, well, it's better that you just step out of the whole game, jump off the board game, and find yourself another job. And that's why I resigned, because I think I'm not getting anywhere here. You know,
I mean, for some people, we must say that and acknowledge that they have difficult life circumstances, and it's really tough to jump off ship when, let's say, you're a mother of a single mother of 2 kids, and you rely on a job, and then it's hard. We can't just say, "Oh, this is what you do," and it's all disappearing of your life. There are things you need to live with for a while and deal with it, and you know, acknowledging that it's a hard situation to find yourself in the end, and there is no easy solution to that.
And you know, Zorina, it is actually the employers who have to learn. You know, we're teaching people individually to look after themselves, and especially now talking about a mother, for example, a single mom with children who has to go to work. You know, employers need to take responsibility, greater responsibility for their workers.
Yeah.
They can't just say, you know, I'm paying you and you do this and this and this. You know, there needs to be a well-being. There needs to be welfare. And it's a very, very important issue.
Maybe here is the right time for me to insert a little bit the scope of the program, Business with Meaning, that I am the training and doing workshops on. Just to give you the sort of the framework of what it revolves around, because it also touches issues like burnout, and it basically has 3 pillars. One of them is the well-being of the employees. So all kinds of well-being trainings, including self-confidence, and including meditation. You know, looking inside yourself, being happy. It's what you do, Charlotte. So when I'm talking about Business with Meaning, this is a framework that doesn't only include my work. This is work that the experts that I work with also do, or they're the main trainers in this case. And then the second pillar is the pillar of the corporate strategy, where the corporation actually finds its purpose, where it doesn't do everything on paper, simply like doing the annual strategy work, and then they do a balanced scorecard that has a pillar saying human resources, and it only talks about numbers, skills, and capabilities, but not about the overall culture. And then the third pillar is actually the culture, the way we communicate. It's the pillar that links the individual needs, the individual purpose, and the meaning of life, the life balance that you want to create for yourself with the corporate purpose, and see how this all fits together. This is the culture. Do I fit in this culture? Do my values fit with the values of the culture? And the way we communicate and relate with other people in a company is also defined by the culture, how you relate to other people. Because if a value is open communication and addressing issues when they arise, rather than waiting for them to fester, then you would address this issue with the walking of the dog. For example, in your case, you would have addressed it much earlier, but this was not the culture of the company you worked for or the institution you worked for. So you see, these issues can also be solved from this communication perspective.
But you see, you use two words, you know, it's meaning, you know, this business with meaning. That's so important, you know, and the other one is culture, because they are linked. Because if you are creating a business with meaning, to think about what you're actually producing, what do you bring out into the world, and how are you going to sell it, and how are you going to produce it, and who is going to help you do this? So the employers, the employees, the product, that all works together beautifully, or should be beautifully. That's our dream.
Yeah.
And we need to create that culture and bring meaning into this whole thing. You know, this is why I'm so excited about the work you do, you know, because you are bringing awareness to companies, and it's almost like a wake-up call. Wake up, wake up. You are your asset, your biggest asset are the human beings who are in your company.
Correct, because currently at most what companies do is have a purpose on the strategy statement. Some of them don't even have purpose. They only have mission, vision, goals. At most, the companies call in strategy consultants to define what their purpose is, so that they can motivate their employees. But in the end, a meaning goes even beyond purpose, because it links the personal values, the culture of the employee, the personal philosophy of life, the vision that they have with the purpose. Is it in line with me that I serve this group of customers? You know, maybe I'm an environmentalist and I don't want to dig oil. You know, there are certain things that go against our beliefs and philosophies. Of course, this what I'm giving is an extreme example. But in the end, people also need to make sure that they're doing the right job, that it's not in disharmony with their beliefs.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, you know, and that's why I feel, you know, employers have got such a huge responsibility, because you can't just jump off and say, I'm not working there anymore, you know, and it is a very, very difficult decision, you know, and especially when you're older. I mean, I was 63 when I left, but it was a very, very hard decision, believe me. And I think, you know, everything you've explained there, it really is a wake-up call for employers. Definitely.
Yeah. We talked about an aspect of culture, which was the constant busyness. We talked about it earlier before we started recording. And maybe we should touch it again, because this is an overwhelming and overarching theme in practically all organizations. It's the show off of busyness. Not even a show off, even keeping yourself busy, it becomes a part of you. It's an imposed culture, the culture of busyness.
Yes, yes. It's sort of that you are seen to be a good worker if you're a workaholic. You know, but workaholism is an addiction.
Yeah.
Let's be clear about this. And people who don't have a balanced life, who just work, what are they running away from? I have spoken to so many men who run away to work because they've got women at home who are nag, and say, I want you to earn more, I want you to do more, I want you to do this, or you're too fat, or don't like your hair, or I don't like the way you dress. So instead of actually looking at what's going on in my marriage, what's going on at home, that's what I keep saying. Don't come to the office and work and complain that you're tired. Go home and have a look what's happening in your marriage. Yeah, and a lot of people who are workaholics run away from home. They don't want to be at home for whatever reason. They don't want to address it.
But you know, it's really reinforcing it. It's like a vicious circle, because before, people have separated themselves from their families at home. They were already workaholics, and this is what separated them even further from, and took away the genuine communication in their relationship. So this exacerbated the problem. It is a vicious circle. The more you work, the less connected you. I mean, it is in the end what you put your attention to, your awareness to. If you put no awareness at all to your relationship, how do you expect it to work?
Yes, exactly. And, you know, I think there's also another aspect. For example, I wanted to, apart from walking my dogs, but I wanted to, you know, do a hobby or something. There was no time for hobbies. And I think everybody needs to have a hobby, needs to have some play time. You know, there's this saying, you know, you work hard and you play hard. But if some companies or some workaholics don't see that actually they need to find balance within themselves, that they work and they play and they relax, well, you know, it has to go together. The company has to make time and not reinforce that alcoholism, workaholism, by saying, wow, what a brilliant worker he is. He works beyond his time. No, look at that, have a holistic approach and look at it. How is that employer actually, what is that person doing in their free time? How do they recover again? Because if there's no recovery, you know, it's difficult, it's tricky.
But the tricky thing is also that society holds as a value working hard. So when they talk, when I've heard managers talk about employees and they say, oh, they work so hard, it's almost like a praise, you know.
Yeah. So it's the trophy they're holding up. I'm working so hard, I'm running myself into the ground, you know, and I'll have a heart attack when I'm 55. There's nothing to be proud of. No, I think, you know, people who say, I'm going to work, I'm giving my best at work, but then I'm going to go home and I'll be with my family, and I'll go cycling or whatever to I stay fit, look after my physical fitness and my mental fitness, because really mental fitness means that I take enough breaks, you know, and enjoy life. But the job should be enjoyed as well. That's the key thing.
Yeah, because it is a part of life. But then again, it brings me to the responsibility of the employer, because it is often expected that you do double the work or triple the volume of work you're supposed to do, because it's all about cost cutting and optimization. And in the end, you have no choice, but you're overwhelmed by this amount of work that you need to do. And then you say, okay, but who's going to finish this work? You know, so it is also the responsibility of the employer to stop exploiting people. There are other ways. And sometimes, even if you think that margins would be cut if you hire 2-3 people to do the job, well, if these people are in balance, they would, of course, bring in more business. They would perform much better. So this would offset it. Why do we need to squeeze everything and to the bone, or cut it to the bone?
Yeah. I mean, I look back now in my life, you know, when I was working all these hours, and I think I felt so trapped. I felt so trapped, but the employer was not very good at caring for their employees. Yeah. You know, and I don't want to blame them but I mean, I'm really, really proud of myself that I've jumped off, but it was hard. But I think there are tools, and I've developed some tools now for people to, during meetings, for example, you know, where they suddenly feel stressed. There is a lot of, let's say there is a lot of tension or aggression or jealousy, and people start hiding within themselves, and they don't want to show don't want to voice their meaning, their ideas, you know, because they're afraid that they're being judged, and we all know these stresses, that you sit in a difficult meeting and you not quite know how to express everything and so on. And it's just this finding peace within yourself and actually stepping back and letting go. So when people are in a difficult meeting or have got a difficult boss or a difficult colleague, just to become aware of it and actually voice it and say to themselves, I find this colleague really difficult. I find this boss really difficult. I find this meeting really difficult. Because as soon as you start expressing it to yourself, somewhere the negative power goes. But if you fight against it and say, oh, well, I should like my boss and I should like my colleague and I should forgive my boss and I should forgive my colleague, you know, you're always putting the, you're just distracting from how you actually really, really feel.
Yeah, you're not acknowledging your feelings.
Yes. You have to. And then just to let go. As if you were having a rope in your hand that connects you to that other person. And you keep pulling and they keep pulling and what you do is you mentally just drop that rope. Just drop it. And just step back internally and just let it be, cut loose. Because it's so destructive if you stay connected to another person and realize this is my story here in this company and this is the story of my boss. He's got a completely different story to mine. And I think if you let go of that rope, you will become aware and how much stress you were with that particular person.
Yeah,
the other thing that you can do is that you can imagine that you are a pillar of light, and it's something you need to practice. Just imagine a pillar. You know, sometimes you can see these lamps that are sort of like a big pillar and they're full of lights, or sometimes there is water bubbling around. Really, really quite fun. And you can be very creative because that's actually what you want to do. You want to create something in an environment where you feel stuck. Yeah. So you imagine that you are in this light pillar or in this pillar with water and bubbles, and it's something playful. And you imagine you're in there. And that helps you to withdraw from that tension, from the tiredness, from the aggression, and look at it in a fresh way. And when you practice it, after a while, you realize that your solar plexus starts to breathe and starts to hear, and that your heart starts to breathe and your heart starts to hear and look with other eyes. So the solar plexus and the heart are very, very important. And they are the first ones who close up during tension in meetings. And if you practice it at home or when you're walking in nature, and then you can apply it when you need to, you will see that your decision making becomes much better. And you will find that perhaps the door will open to another company, or you find new ways in that particular company.
Yeah, great exercise. I love it. Because decision making is also, it keeps people in limbo. What should I do? Should I stay or should I go? And how should I go if I decide to go? Yeah. And
the fear of it.
Yes.
Zorina, the fear that you realize, actually, I'm misplaced in this company. I'm misplaced in this institution. It's just that there is a culture clash. There's a clash of personalities. It will not work. It will not resolve itself. Of course, you try. But when you come to that point and I can't go on, that is agony. That is also so stressful because you're afraid. And you never think that actually what you are leaving behind is not good and that there's something good ahead of you. I mean, now I look back and think, how on earth stay for 5 years? Because after 2 years or 3 years, I knew this is not, there's a culture clash. It was very difficult. And you need help.
Yeah, you need help because our personal circumstances are so different, and everybody has such a different character and needs that it's really, I mean, this exercise that you gave applies to everybody and you can apply it, but for decision making, you know, characters are so different that we need to be very careful. If somebody is very inert and doesn't take action, of course they have to recognize this and realize that at some point they would need to take action. You know, while for somebody who is always impulsive, to take an impulsive action and say, fine, I quit, maybe is not the best decision. So I would say, you know, try and take the opposite stance of what you naturally are, so that you can see it from a different perspective and see if this is the best decision for you. Because if you're very impulsive, you want to wait it out and see, am I acting on impulse here? Is this the best decision for me? Because maybe I can use Charlotte's tool, calm down and see things from a different perspective.
Yes. Yeah. I think, you know, it's very important. And you know what I believe? That the most important people in a company are the human resource people. And they are quite often, I mean, the companies I worked in, human resources, that was somewhere, it was a department, yeah? Mm-hmm. So the manager was very important. But actually human resources. And it needs to be somewhere an independent person or an independent group of people, where an employer can go and say, look, I'm having these problems here with my colleague or with the manager, and you know, we need to find a way through this. So you need a mediator,
right? Mm-hmm.
A facilitator who helps to actually bring these people together and find a better way, so that people who are impulsive, they don't have to leave the company, but they get some help. And then on the other hand, a person who is very shy and doesn't want to make the decision, is too afraid to make decision, but actually the human resources department realizes there's a person who's got a lot of potential, but that person is just very shy or doesn't know how to deal with it. Mm-hmm. You know, they take responsibility and say, how can we help? How can we help? Yeah. What can we do? I think there needs to be far more emphasis on a very, very good human resource department in a company.
Yeah. And not only on the department, but in general on spreading values that have to do with humaneness, being human, like being empathic and stepping in somebody else's shoes, trying to understand rather than cutting somebody off just because on the surface they don't seem to fit the company culture. Yeah, because there may be an underlying reason behind, and if you don't try and understand, and maybe it needs a little tweak to make things good again on both sides. Yes. Because imagine the costs for a company when they constantly need to rehire other people. That's a huge cost. This is what they don't count. But in the end, to hire somebody that you think is better, who might not be better at all, because in the end, if somebody is better, is whether they can fit your culture, whether you can get the potential out of them. And if your company is not conducive to getting the potential out of people, then whoever you hire with whatever credentials, they would still perform poorly.
Yeah. Yeah. I so agree. And, you know, I must say, I suffered a lot when I was working and then realized, you know, there's a culture clash and so on. But, you know, actually the work you and I are doing together, my experiences, I understand, you know, when somebody comes to me and says, you know, with any problems, I understand. And I think we learn through our suffering. And then we can turn it around and bring it into the world and actually help people to lead better lives and be happier in their work. And I think that's the vision I have. And I think you have the same, of a workforce that is inspired and is creative and loves going to work in the morning and thinks, what can we do together? You know, and a boss who says, wow, my workforce is so brilliant. They really enjoy working for me and I enjoy watching them grow. Now that's another word. I felt, for example, I'm going back to the church. Well, I've learned a lot there. There was not a lot of growth happening. Mm-hmm. I wanted to learn and I wanted to read and I wanted to grow and all this sort of stuff. And then, you know, you're told you haven't got time to read. But I don't like being stuck. I think until the day I die, I want to learn. And I learned that from my father, who was a fantastic businessman. When I look back now, how he ran his company, he knew all the individual workers. He knew their stories. He knew what they were good at and what they were not so good at. And he helped them to grow. And my father always wanted to learn. And I nursed him when he was dying. And just a few days before he died, he said, Charlotte, I've learned something today. Gives me goosebumps now. Mm-hmm. Because he was open for learning. Now, how many employees who are so stressed out, who are workaholics, how much time do they have to learn and to grow and to evolve beyond workaholism, beyond the unhappy marriage at home, beyond, really fulfill potential and not be stuck? Mm-hmm. The mind boggles. Yeah. The mind boggles of what we can achieve together if we're all willing to learn.
Yeah, learning is also one of the tools that one of our other experts, Mike Amato, talks about when we talk about lifting yourself up from depression or from low feelings, because learning is the state of seeking. When you're in the state of seeking, you're open for possibilities. You're not closed. When you're in depression, you're closed. When you open yourself up, then your outlook on life opens up as well. So learning is key.
Learning is key. And having the courage to enjoy change. I think a lot of people don't like change and they're afraid of change, and they don't realize that actually in that change, there is a whole new set of, it's a field of potential. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people that are too afraid of change and only see the negative side of change. But I think, when we play in the field of potential, what it's playing, mm-hmm. that is so important.
All right, Charlotte.
Everything is so serious. Everything is so serious in the corporate world.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And it's life in the end. Corporations are just like small bubbles in the world, small bubbles of people, and and we can change entire societies by changing these small components, small bubbles. It can start from the individual. It can start from groups of people like corporations.
Yeah. But what Gandhi, I love Gandhi's quote, and he says, we need to be the change we want to see. And the other quote, which really inspires me, is Einstein, you can't solve a problem with the mind that created it. Yeah. So that means grow beyond of what you think you can do. I mean, I'm now going in a completely new adventure. I'm leaving here in about 4 weeks' time, and I'm moving into an area I've never been.
Yeah, I'm moving in Mauritius now, and you're moving to Scotland, right?
I'm moving to Scotland, yeah. And I'm moving into an area I've never been. I'm just following my intuition. Yeah. And who knows what life opens up there. You see, I have got a very curious mind. But I tell you what, I used to be such a fearful person. I was so fearful. I was so afraid of everything. But I think I learned through meditation and being open to life and saying no to employers who exploit me. Yeah. It was all through a lot of suffering, but now I've got this curious mind and think, what else can I do? What else can I do? What else can I learn?
Wonderful, Charlotte. On this note, let's announce the next talk that we're going to have and leave people with the exercises that you gave them. So the next talk is, again, from the series, The Magic of You. We have 5 topics so far. We've had 4, and the last one is From Superwoman to Superb Woman, excavating and releasing more treasures from within by finding balance. So we're going to be talking a lot about the human factor in companies. Also an exciting talk. The female factor. Did I say the human factor?
Oh, the female factor.
Yeah.
I think I've got a nice story for you for the next one, and I think we can talk around that story. in our next one. And I was 50 years old when I lived in Canada, and I learned to play ice hockey. And that was quite something. And after 8 weeks, I played in a team. And I've learned a lot there. So next time we go from this superwoman to superb woman. And I'm excited about it. It's all about ice hockey. And how can we find the superb woman? Yeah, you will see. I won't say anymore.
Yeah, wonderful. Looking forward, Charlotte. Thanks so much.
Take care. And thank you. Bye. Bye-bye. Bye.